This is the Build Your Path podcast, where we explore how people get into their careers in the built environment. Today's guest is Brandon Mothershead. Brandon has over 12 years experience in the construction industry and is the acting site manager at Harkins Builders. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Shapiro and Duncan. Build the lifestyle you deserve. Welcome on into the Build Your Path podcast, hosted by myself, Matthew Pine. I am with my guest today,
Brandon Mothershead. I'm a superintendent at Harkins Builders, and one of the coolest things that I've done is be able to teach and transfer my knowledge and mentor younger employees.
So, Brandon, definitely our pleasure to have you on the podcast. I appreciate you taking up the time.
Of course, glad to be here.
So if you want to walk through with our listeners, how you got to your position now, maybe what pathway you took in your early life.
Sure. So I've always had an interest with construction and building. I was always using blocks to build things when I was little, and I knew I wanted to be in the construction industry. What's interesting is no one in my family was in construction. I just always had a passion for it. I made my first steps into the construction industry with attending a career academy at the Applied Research Lab, which is part of the Howard County Public School System. I was able to learn the construction process with real world experiences and industry standard softwares. I even was able to build a small size house inside the shop at the school, which was pretty cool, from the foundation to the roof my junior year in high school. This allowed me to understand the full process of a project. This program also empowered me to be a lifelong learner and never stop asking questions.
Yeah, I think that's important for our young listeners too. Like, never stop asking questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's definitely a good lesson to have.
Yep, for sure. And then, so that was for my junior year, and then in my senior year, I had the pleasure of interning with Harkins Builders. I was out on the job site getting hands-on experience and understanding what a general contractor does, which is what Harkins is, which even further enhanced my passion for construction, for sure.
For sure. Did you have any mentors, growing up, or maybe through your schooling process, or maybe even in your internship that really put you on the right path?
Yeah, I mean, my teacher that was at my Applied Research Lab, he was definitely a mentor for me. He had a good passion for construction as well, and he just kind of pushed me along and said, just get out there and do it. Go find a company and do what you want to do. So I guess just to keep going on a little bit of the path on how I got here is kind of get more into the educational background of myself. I applied to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore to work towards my bachelor's degree in construction management. And while I was there, I also played Division I baseball. But fortunately, in my freshman year, I blew out my elbow, which ended my baseball career, which was a little upsetting. And then by that time, I decided to leave UMES and come back home to Howard County and go to CCBC, the Community College of Baltimore County. And then from there, I was able to get my associate's degree in construction management. So I actually went to school full-time, and I worked full-time for Harkins at that time. I was out on site every day, and then in the evening, I would go to class at CCBC.
Pretty dedicated.
I'd say so. I never thought I would do all that. Looking back at myself, like I would never have said that I was going to do that.
So you've been in the construction industry, and you've been with Harkins for a little while now. Especially with this ongoing pandemic, what other challenges, maybe some pressing issues that you see that Harkins, or maybe the industry as a whole, faces?
I mean, for sure, this pandemic is for sure one of the tougher ones that anybody's dealt with. But I'd say from a challenging standpoint is the way that Harkins deals with in different authorities having jurisdiction, just different counties, different inspections, different processes in different counties that we work, and being able to understand those different things to make sure we can stay on top of it and we don't get behind and are still able to stay on schedule and all that kind of stuff.
Are you guys still like decent with jobs that you have currently, or?
So currently the job that I'm working on right now in Prince George's County, there's a lot of entities to deal with as far as inspections go, and it's just difficult to keep up with all the requirements and understanding the different inspections that we need to have and all the paperwork and all that stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah, so we can address that a little bit. You had mentioned earlier that you work for Harkins and that you're a superintendent. Say a young person came up to you and they asked, what does a superintendent do? What's the job role, job description? What would you tell them?
So if a younger me came up to me and said, what does a superintendent do? I'd say that we need to have experience with working with different subcontractors and understanding the different parts of a project. We need to understand all aspects of the construction process from pre-construction to turnover to the client. We also need to be able to run a portion of the project on our own, unassisted from our supervisor. And then also a big thing for Harkins and for probably most superintendents here, that quality control is the number one priority for a superintendent, ensuring that work is being put in place per the contract documents. And then the last thing I would tell them is that we need to be able to have clear, respectful communication with our fellow employees, the design teams, engineers, and clients, which is always a big thing for a superintendent, to be able to communicate and stay on top of things.
Yeah, and I know we alluded to this earlier, but what would you say the coolest or most unique thing that you've done or are currently doing in your position?
So the coolest thing, and it's a little on the short side, but it's definitely concise, is I something that's come about here recently for me is being able to teach and transfer my knowledge onto younger Harkins employees and also other individuals in the industry. So if they have, again, goes back to what I did when I was younger. Don't be afraid to ask questions. So got a question, ask it. So that's why I think that's the coolest thing, is being able to transfer what I know to somebody else.
Have you seen, like, in this process, maybe not necessarily with a younger Harkins employee, but maybe a younger person who's interested in the industry? Have you, I want to say, maybe persuaded them or convinced them that the construction industry might be something for them?
For sure. I mean, I've had a couple of instances where somebody's like, I'm not sure if I really want to get into the construction. I'll just kind of run through the things that I do, and they're like, oh, you're right. That's definitely what I want to do. So
yeah,
very rewarding to have somebody want to do the same things that you want to do, and they're just not quite sure, but you're able to push them over the edge.
Yeah, maybe this segues well to our next question, which would be, what gets you up in the morning? What brings you joy to your work that you do?
Yep. The thing that I enjoy most is being able to go to work every day, and I can go to that job site, and it starts out as a dirt hole or a bunch of trees, and I can turn that into something beautiful. And I also like to be able to drive by a property and say to my wife and kids one day that I built that. So it's just a lot
of pride in that.
A lot of pride in what we do, for sure.
Who has been like the smartest person that you know? Doesn't necessarily have to be in your professional career, but just in general, who's the smartest person and why?
Kind of thought about that question, and I would say that John Loftus, who is the Vice President of Quality Assurance here at Harkins, and I choose him because if I ever have a question about how something is to be done, I'm calling him. If there's ever a problem I come across and need to just talk it through, I'm calling John. So John's just a great resource for everybody and anything that relates to construction. He's been in the industry for 40 plus years, and has a vast knowledge of all parts of the industry and anything that has to do with construction. He knows about it. He's experienced it.
Yeah, it definitely helps to have that expertise, I would say. So maybe as a bit of a wrap up for you, Brandon, what are some of the more, rewarding aspects? I know you mentioned, you could drive by a site that you had built up and show to your wife and kids, I built that. Are there any other like rewarding aspects to your job? Maybe some benefits, workplace environment?
The big thing that comes to mind with Harkins for sure is the tight-knit, family-oriented company atmosphere that it provides. Everybody in the company knows everybody. There's a great chemistry between all the employees. Everybody's willing to help one another, and I've taken a lot of knowledge away from all the site teams that I've worked on, and I've been able to grow as a person and a professional in the industry while working for this great company. So Harkins is definitely there for everybody. They understand everybody's situation. Especially in this COVID situation, they for sure have been very helpful for me and everybody in the company that I talk to, just to make sure everybody's safe, number one priority.
Yeah, well, we certainly appreciate your time, Brandon. I think our listeners, got a lot out of this conversation, and we wish you nothing but safety.
Very good. I appreciate the time, and I look forward to hearing from other people about this.
If you want to learn more about Build Your Path podcast or the built environment overall, go ahead and visit buildyourpath.org. Another big thanks goes out to our guest, Brandon Mothershead from Harkins Builders. Once again, this episode was brought to you by Shapiro & Duncan. Build the lifestyle you deserve. Build Your Path podcasts are produced by the Maryland Center for Construction, Education, and Innovation. I'm Matt Pine. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.